If you've never seen one in real life, this is what they look like. And this, believe it or not, is a small one. Nothing says community like a big old plate of Carnitas tacos. And now I'm taking this classic and making it plant-based. So we're gonna be making our salsa de aguacate using really fresh, delicious ingredients. First thing that I wanna do is char the tomatillos and the jalapeno. And as you can see, they have this husk on them. So you wanna be sure to remove that papery husk. You'll wanna give them a really good rinse. Now that our tomatillos are washed off, we are going to just add them to a preheated cast iron skillet. When you see enough of the charring start to happen on one of the sides, you can flip them over. I like to just use my hands to feel, really getting in tune with these ingredients as they're cooking along. Our tomatillos are nice and charred and beautiful now, super soft and tender. I also charred up my jalapeno nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the stem at this point. And I'm just giving it a little bit of a smell to sense how spicy it is. This is actually not spicy at all from what I smell. So I'm gonna just leave seeds in and all. But if you're not a huge fan of spiciness, you can absolutely remove the seeds. So I'm going to start layering these elements into my blender, my 3 tomatillos, my whole jalapeno, and I am going to cut into a really nice ripe avocado, and this is really the base of our creaminess. Oh, and that's such a beautiful avocado. You don't always get them like this. So beautiful. Use a spoon to scoop out the flesh of the avocado. I'm gonna be adding lemon juice and water as my liquids. And for the lemon juice, it's adding a little bit more of this tartness that's gonna brighten up the entire salsa. I'm just gonna eyeball some of my lemon juice in here, about a tablespoon or so. I also like to add a little bit of water just to loosen it up. I also do have some cilantro here that I'm just going to tear and throw into the blender. A little bit of cumin and some kosher salt to season this up. I like to add the cumin because I feel like it adds a little bit more depth of flavor to the salsa. So I am going to start by just pulsing this, and then we'll get it to blend nice and smooth. It looks so delicious and creamy. So what I'm looking for is a slight bit of runniness, but it should, stick to your spoon. It's not quite a guacamole, it's smoother, but it definitely has lots of texture still in there. Pour this into a bowl and set it aside. So if you haven't ever worked with jackfruit before, it's seriously a game changer, especially if you're choosing to eat more of a plant-based lifestyle. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a fruit, and you can find it in this fruit form, which is not how I prefer to use it for this particular dish. So jackfruit is a fruit that grows on trees, has all these crazy spikes on it. This one is super ripe and ready to be cut. This works well as a delicious dessert. But for this carnitas dish, young green jackfruit is essential. We can't use our sweet friend that we just met because young green jackfruit is ready to take on any flavor. Give it a good rinse, and you're gonna wanna give it a really nice squeeze to get a lot of this excess liquid out, which is the brine, the water that it was in. There are some parts here that I call the shreddable bits. These are my scientific terms, haha, not really. As I apply a little bit of pressure with my fingers, it really starts to shred like a shredded pork, shredded chicken, but there are some textures in here that don't look very much like meat. I'm just going to cut down that line where I see that shreddable jackfruit connect to the core piece, and I'll use my knife to just cut down and separate those two, and I can go ahead and start adding my nice textured jackfruit to a bowl and creating a pile of my cores and my seed pods, and kind of setting those aside to get broken down a bit further. Especially in Mexican communities, like the community that I grew up in, if you're trying to encourage somebody to explore an ingredient like jackfruit and they see these triangular bits, they see these seed pods in there, they're gonna say, what the heck is that? That does not look like meat. I really wanna try to create a dish that looks as meat-like as possible so that the experience for them feels very nostalgic, feels like what we've already been used to for a long, long time. I'm just going to start to mince that jackfruit through. The last thing I like to do to just get it ready before we start to season it is to just use my hand to hand shred even further. So just dig right in with your hands, apply a little bit of pressure. It just takes a second, break it down. I have here really simple elements to season up your jackfruit nicely. I have some Mexican oregano, some ground cumin, salt, pepper, chili flake, and I'm just gonna pour that all over the top of my jackfruit. I also do have freshly squeezed orange juice. I'm gonna add about half of it now. Orange juice just helps to give a little bit of tanginess, a little bit of tartness. It also has sugars in it, which helps to nicely brown and caramelize our jackfruit. Grapeseed oil is going to give it that nice fatty texture. Now, if you've ever had pork carnitas, you know that it's pork cooked in its own fat. So it's a very fatty, textured, mouthfeel type of dish. And because this is a fruit, we need to be able to add some of that oil to give it that same mouthfeel, the same texture that you would expect from a carnitas dish. And so that is what that oil is gonna do for us. So I'm just going to mix my jackfruit all together. This is a very simple, straightforward dish because folks in my community, I wanted to make sure that I'm using ingredients that they're likely already gonna have in their cupboard. Jackfruit itself is already something that's very new to people. It may not be easily accessible. So I thought, okay, jackfruit's already might be a little mini mission to find, but you can get all the other things and make it really delicious. So now our seasoning is nice and well incorporated into our jackfruit, and we are ready to start cooking this up. So we have our cast iron skillet that is preheated, ready for our jackfruit to hit this hot pan and get nice and seared. We're gonna put all of our jackfruit in and have it cook for anywhere between 25-35 minutes. I want it to get nice and crispy, nice and brown throughout. As the jackfruit kind of starts to evaporate some of that moisture we added, you want to hit it with a little bit more of that liquid as needed, but you will end up using all of the orange juice, all of the oil throughout the process. My jackfruit is looking nice and brown and slightly crispy. I'm gonna hit it with the last little bit of my orange juice that I have here. That's gonna help it caramelize really nicely, give it that nice little bit of sweetness, tartness, tanginess that is gonna make this even more delicious. It looks so much like meat. And this is going to definitely have my family turning heads. It's gonna have them really thinking that they're eating a meat. I've done so many events where people will say, oh, I'm actually vegetarian. I'll take everything else here except for the meat. And they're talking about jackfruit. And I cannot wait to dig into these tacos. I have some handmade tortillas de maíz. Lather a little bit of our salsa de aguacate on the bottom. Add a little bit of that carnita on there. It looks so good. Pico de gallo here, cilantro, and these tacos are ready to eat. Look at that. So delicious. I'm gonna just squeeze a little bit of limon over the top and take a big old bite. Maybe not a big old bite. Let's see here. That is so delicious. Everything that I remember in a carnitas taco, topped with that fresh pico de gallo, so you have this nice balance of creamy, fresh, and super delicious jackfruit. This takes me back to family gatherings, ready for that carnitas to be served up on freshly handmade tortillas, and now I'm serving these up for my community. Like we say in Mexico, buen provecho.